And I'm also giving thanks to my spiritual father, Eemish, and I am giving thanks to any and all Pleiadians who have anything to do with Earth and humanity. And I am giving thanks to any and all reptilians who have had anything to do with Earth and humanity. I am here to do your work, and I thank you for your continued energetic blessings and support. Greetings, dear soul. I am Crispy, a Gaian, Mayan, Pleiadian, reptilian emissary of light. Een Lak'esh alakin. I am another you, you are another me. We are one God-sciousness. And yes, welcome to this episode 12, Understanding Reptilians. Now, you might have noticed a snake skin around my neck that my son gave me as a gift the other day. And I'm actually going to put it back on the altar because it's very precious. I was incredibly excited to see these eye markings. It's a complete transformation, and that's really what the serpent represents, especially with regards to the Mayan calendar, the Mayan culture. Now, you might be interested to note that he also brought me these deer antlers from the same hike he went on. There we are. Out in the woods behind his school. So the astute among you will have noticed these behind me a few episodes ago. And now you know the story. There are many stories involved with my sacred feathers, but we'll leave them for another time. So, like the wonderful feature I utilized last time for the Mayan episode, I'm going to punch in reptilians here and see what comes up. Oh my, look at that. So handy. Now, I'm going to read for you from Earth Pleiadian Keys to the Living Library. And I'm also going to drop in some audio samples from Barbara Marciniak. Some of them are her lecturing in her own voice, and a few are her channeling the Pleiadians, as she did for all of her books. I'm not going to tell you which is which, and I think you will be able to tell the difference. So let's get started. The very first mention of the Pleiadians is on page 29. Here we go. The separation that the keepers of time are concerned with is the separation of existing life forms from their essence. It is through this method that reptilian and other energies are creating tyranny. Tyranny. Ooh, interesting. What does that word remind me of? Tyranny, Tyrannosaurus. Oh, clever, Pleiadians, for putting the word tyranny into the same sentence as reptilians. I wonder who named our dinosaurs. Interesting. Next. Page 78. The Sumerian culture was directed by those who came from the stars, the stellar reptilian ancestors. They were establishing a civilization once again, creating one more experiment to look at what could be done with the biological forces on Earth. Ancient myths and legends, hundreds of thousands of years old, tell of the serpents, dragons, and reptilian visitors from the skies. For eons, these creation stories were conveyed orally down through the generations. Interesting. So as soon as we hear the word Sumerian, that should create a link to you for the name Zecharia Sitchin. He was basically the first person to reveal the previously hidden to the Western world teachings of the Sumerian tablets. And his first book, called The 12th Planet, which was Nibiru, was published in 1976. All right. I forgot to mention that this book, Earth, Barbara Marciniak's second, was 1994. Okay? That's 18 years after The 12th Planet was published. So, this information, this reptilian information, and I do believe it was Zecharia Sitchin who brought forth the term Anunnaki. And some of these terms are in the Bible, by the way. So what he did was supplement or actually uncover what was removed from the Bible, possibly, in one way we could see. That was part of his function. Now, by the way, on the Tzolk'in, Zecharia Sitchin has one of the most fascinating birthdays to me. It is tone 12, which is called Understanding, like we are in right now, episode 12. And the glyph is the jaguar shaman. So, he is called Understanding Jaguar Shaman. And I find it personally fascinating that he shares the same Mayan birthday with Buzz Aldrin, Lenny Bruce, Paul Selig, Emma Watson, George Noory, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Donna Summer. All 8 of them are Understanding Jaguar Shaman. So if you can connect the dots between all 8 of them and understand how that equals Ka Lahun Ish, then you are ready to be a Mayan embodiment astrologer. By the way, I forgot to mention that today is called Hun Lahun Ahau, which means tone 11. And if you know me, you know I like to put the dot underneath so that we are balancing on a double-stacked rolla bola. And we would call this day Resolving Solar Chief. Interestingly, brought to you by the fascinating pair of Albert Einstein and Melinda Gates. If that is still her married name, I'm not sure. Now, we all know that Albert is one of the smartest human beings ever to live. And therefore, Melinda Gates is one of the smartest human beings to ever live. I'm not going to say anything about Bill and reptilians because that's just not my style. All right, where were we? Okay, Zecharia Sitchin. It's interesting to note that Zecharia wrote 7 other books as part of the Earth Chronicles series, as well as 6 other companion books. So that's 13 plus the original. What an amazing amount of information he gave us. Now, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, and I'm not going to check, but I think they were all published before 1992, when the first Pleiadian book was published. So this information had been bubbling up, and in fact it was getting quite popular. The Anunnaki and the reptilian link, before Barbara Marciniak even began channeling in 1988. So as far as the timeline goes, it's good to keep those in mind sometime. All right, back to her second book, Earth. And here from page 79, people all over your planet, including Aborigines, Maya, Incas, natives of North and South America, groups on the European continent and throughout Africa and Asia, all embrace the idea of dragons or serpents as the creators of life. Dragons could breathe fire, and though some were feared, others were credited with bringing power, prosperity, and life. The reptilian race, or Lizzies as we affectionately call them, are an integral part of your ancestral line. They are an awesome, ferocious, and gracious collection of consciousness. For they are many things combined into one. These reptilians are important for you to understand as aspects of existence that connect you to your deep taproot of your own heritage in your ancient past. Now, here is an audio sample for you. Let's listen.
You know, the reptilian footprints are everywhere. I said they were in Delphi, okay, and I started channeling the day after I went to Delphi. They're in Egypt. I'm sure many of you have been to Egypt. You can see the Egyptian, the serpent stuff everywhere. They're in the land between the two waters, Mesopotamia, and I believe that we probably have sanctions against Saddam Hussein because all these guys seem to be part of the same organization. I believe that this sanction stuff is just a front to keep archaeologists and many scholars out of an area that would give tremendous more keys to our planetary past and the reptilian connection. The old word, I heard someone say this, the old word for priest is snake charmer. We have serpents in the Aboriginal cultures, the rainbow serpent. In the Hopi, they have the serpent dances. In Mesoamerica, you have the feathered serpent. You have in India, the Nagas. In China, you have the dragons. The emperors believed they were descended from the dragons, and only the emperor could have the 5-clawed emblem of the dragon, or only the emperor could be buried along the ley line that in China was called the dragon line. So as we look around the planet, this stuff is everywhere. In Eastern Europe, where my ancestors come from, there's a huge dragon myth. And then, of course, if you go to England and the Great Britain area, which I believe is an old landmass of Atlantis, you start to see that whole reptilian consciousness from an old time when the women seemed to be the ones who knew how to intercede with the reptilian consciousness. I believe that when the reptiles came from space, or wherever they came from, through the dimensions, they live underground, they're here now underground, we have a tremendous number of underground cities and tunnels and things of this nature. It's the women on the planet who had sex with the reptiles. It's the women on the planet who had sex with the reptiles. It's the women on the planet who had sex with the reptiles. And therefore, throughout time, it was the woman who cavorted with the devil. And so I believe that what was going on in Delphi is that these reptilian men or reptilian beings, it wasn't a snake. I don't think it was a snake. I think we're talking about reptilian beings who still live underground, who were in what would be called compatible relationship, nonviolent relationship, because I want to be real clear here. There's a whole positive model of dragon reptilian energy within our planetary history, but it comes from the eastern side of our culture, not the western. The western world, it makes the reptiles the devil, and the eastern world makes them good luck and value, and you have these dragon traditions that go, and the serpent traditions that go everywhere. So I feel what was going on in Delphi, it was the same thing that was going on in the witch burnings from about 1000 or onward, of the persecutions, is that these women still had contact with these reptilian beings, and the patriarchy did not like it. The men did not like their women cavorting with reptiles. It's like, wait a minute, you're ours. We don't want you going out there and doing it with the reptiles. But these people have never forgotten the mysteries. And this is one of the things the Pleiadians say. They say the family of light, which we all like to think we are, working with light, we're the family of light, we're bringing the information. The Pleiadians say the family of light forgot, and the family of dark remembered. They remembered the mysteries. They remembered the power of their ancestors. They remembered the sacred geometry. They understood the Earth's grid. They understood and knew that they created their own reality. But they, too, are run by the lizards. If they weren't, they wouldn't abuse their own kind. And it seems that no matter what level of the leadership we're talking about, they appear all to be programmed and controlled. And most of this is done through sex. Why sex? Because out of all of the frequencies that we have at our disposal, that seems to be one of the frequencies that someone can stimulate in us that they then can use to direct and steer in any way they want. Your sexual energy is some of the most powerful energy you will ever experience.
So yes, we have talked about sexual energy in another video or two, and we will talk about it again. So let's move on. Other than to say that it could very well be said that the creation of the physical universe that we call the Big Bang could very well have been due to divine feminine and divine masculine energy before the physical universe existed. Spiritually, so everything in existence is the orgasmic ejaculate of God-sciousness. What? All right, next. This is from page 80. Understand that the reptilian entities are creator gods. They are master geneticists who assisted the original planners in designing the living library. They are an ancient race and are very advanced in creating sentient biological forms. They were some of the prime instigators in putting together the human species on this planet. They learned their craft from the ancient ones. As master geneticists, Lizzies know their trade. They are highly skilled in genetic organization and manipulation. They far surpass many brilliant beings in their ability to genetically adjust life. So, in the vastness of existence, the reptilian families are known to be creators and are responsible for organizing the genetic structure of life forms. Well, this is very interesting. You see here, to get back on a multidimensional plane, we can bring in some of the information from Bashar, which I love to do, in that he said the original species on the planet that had reached an evolutionary state before the reptilians came to Earth were what we now call Sasquatch, and some of them still exist. So what we're seeing is we can think of a laboratory setting, if you will, for the genetic manipulation and creation. And the gene splicing comes to mind, and cloning, and we've got, recent examples like Dolly. Back to the same page of page 80. Consider your journey through the reptilian family as a key to take you deeper into your roots. Reptilian influence lies at the core of your biological structuring, and today these creatures are returning to your conscious awareness. So yes, this book, like I said, 1994, and maybe the return began in 1976 or even before that. Here's another little audio clip that we should tune into.
We will speak for the reptiles and say to you that they are very good reptiles, that in ancient times they were known to be the creators of civilization, kind, benevolent. In some cultures and around the world, they were thought of as the creator mothers because they brought with them their ability to use sound and form and to manifest patterns and to create those patterns through focus and to repeat those focused patterns in such a capacity that then life could be formed around them. Today you call those patterns the DNA. Your scientifics are a bit hesitant to suggest that these reptilian beings are master geneticists, at least to the public. But in private, many of them are, let's just say, a bit in shock over the realization of creator beings whose image, yes, you have been created in. It is not exactly how you have been taught. Remember this. There is a goodness inside of all things, and there is the potential to do evil or not goodness inside of all things. This is your choice.
All right. That's starting to tap into the core message of what I'm delivering today, is that there are good or light reptilians and negative or service to self reptilians who wanted control. Now, regarding DNA, perhaps you've noticed in my man cave here, the theme of DNA, which was brought to my attention through the Mayan calendar back in 1998. And here with this little clip from Bashar, we can add some information to that.
You mentioned earlier that the Mayan people came to the planet via spacecraft. Is that correct?
The ancient versions of them, yes.
So were they also part of the Homo sapien creation, and they were off planet, or these were
no.
So they were actually another species, the Mayan.
Yes, and of course, remember that the descendants of the original Mayab people have also mixed with actual humans. So there are very few original bloodlines that remain from the original Mayab people that arrived on your planet as an external species.
So what we need to understand is not all humans are reptilian-oriented, although a very, very, very large proportion, a large percent. In another clip of Bashar, he said there were some other small cultures that were not influenced by the reptilians. And of course, you would think, let's say even if they came when there was only one land mass, there's no way they could have gotten to every single Sasquatch and had sex with it, or whatever they did. And then, of course, the fact that this planet has been visited many times by extraterrestrials. So, now here's another audio clip to enhance our information sharing today.
Who are the colonizers? General, when we speak of the colonizers, we are speaking of those who create empire. When you're talking about empire, you are undoubtedly on earth talking about the Een Lak'esh, those who to earth from heaven came. That does not preclude other visitors, of course, including we Pleiadians. But we as Pleiadians are not colonizers. We do not go in and set up a reality to conform to our desires for wealth and might and power. We are stimulators. We stir things up. We insert realities. We are educators. As Pleiadians, we are ancestors to the human race, in that we have been able to breed with you and to upgrade certain limitations within the human DNA.
And Barbara would have been 71 at that time. She's turning 75 this summer of 2024. And here she tells us that the Pleiadians have interbred with Earth humans and upgraded our DNA. That is new information. And I like it. Whew! It's, wow, okay, so multidimensionally, future, past, now. Actually, there is only one now, and every action we do now affects our future and our past because there's only one now, and it's right here also. Wow. All right, back to the book. Still on page 80, at one time far back in its own history, the reptilian family was a very benevolent and uplifting race. Members of this family came to Earth and were deeply involved with creating the living library. However, they eventually created civil war among themselves and amongst other representatives of other creator gods. The wars were all based on separation from each other to gain power. Remember, part of your journey as evolving humans is to understand that you are separate, unique, classic human creatures with free will. You are discovering other, separate, uniquely classic creatures with free will and realizing that you are all one. Unity consciousness is the goal of existence, and it is the goal of your lifetime. You are here to evolve into unity consciousness, which means transcending the shadow ego. The shadow ego is created through the illusion of separation, primarily due to fear, the experience of fear. Now we're going to add a little bit of information about two famous Anunnaki called Enki and Enlil. Perhaps you've heard about their warring ways, and Enki loved humans, and Enlil thought we were just servants, and they began fighting. Now, this may or may not be actually true. It could be a metaphor, much in the same way that the Pleiadians tell us stories. However, it does fit the narrative in that some reptilians love humans, love their own creations, and some of them don't. And I would say that the ones who rose to power were those who don't. They love us to provide them with fear, which is what they actually eat. They eat fear. They eat the energy of fear, as we've mentioned many times in this video series. Okay, now back to our book. Following page 81. The ancient reptilian ancestors, once they are recognized and acknowledged as beings in existence, can be freed by you from the role they have been playing. You are multidimensional creatures, and one version of yourselves is this one on Earth as human beings. Simultaneously, in another version of reality, you can also be these very reptilian beings that have influenced you. You can move into and experience an identity where you are the reptilians themselves and feel their dilemma, their restriction within their own paradigm. And that's what oneness truly means. Non-duality. There is no other. I call it God-sciousness. Some call it cosmic consciousness. There is no separation. It is an illusion. There is only one thing in existence. God-sciousness. We are all holy holograms, divine sparks, sacred fractals of God-sciousness, and all of existence is God-sciousness. Back to the book. On your inner tour of your family tree, the reptilian consciousness as a branch of your ancestral line is well worth acknowledging. Now, to repeat another sentence. Reptilian influence lies at the core of your biological structuring, and today these creatures are returning to your conscious awareness. From a modern biological science point of view, every single human brain, and I would say even the Mayans, have a part of the brain that is called the reptile brain or reptilian brain. It's at the base of the spine, just the very first part of the brain that develops. It is primal. It is for all automatic functioning such as heartbeat, breathing, digestion, hunger, thirst, sex, territoriality, aggression, dominance, and even rituals, especially those that are very repetitive. And when we look at the territoriality, we can also think of ownership. Okay, so all of these really, to me, represent the lower three chakras. Okay, survival, sexuality, power over others, and of course, one's power over themselves. The lower three chakras are reptilian in nature, in vibration. The chakras are above and beyond humanity, in fact. I believe that it could be said that we travel on our light bodies, which is the 7 main chakras, and then our Merkaba, which is spiritual light. And we build this DNA body inside our Merkaba, and we pack the meat and bones around our 7 main chakras. I would say that most of humanity lives most of their lives in the lower 3 chakras. Fear is the root chakra. And so, as I've mentioned many times, terror and rage are the lowest of the low. A feeling of security and protection is the highest of the low. We all have all 7. There's nothing bad about the root chakra. In fact, if you didn't have one, you would not exist. So it is absolutely crucial. Of course, our sacral chakras are as well. All of them are. We know this. But it is through fear that we exude and lose energy. It is siphoned off of us. And this is why so many movies from Hollywood, which is controlled, run, and operated by reptilian energies, primarily, promote fear. They want the people to be, first of all, paying lots of money to go sit in theaters and feel terrified and horny, often at the same time, which is weird, but hey, that's the way they roll. And guess what? Every single human being has a reptilian brain and the lower 3 chakras, as well as the others. So it's easy to trigger and hook people into staying in that vibration. It's very simple. And I suggest to you that if you wish to shine your light, you will no longer have any attraction to that style of entertainment. The heart chakra, your 4th chakra, cannot be accessed by reptilians or the reptilian mind, as we shall see further today. The other thing the reptile brain is responsible for is, because of the survival mechanism, the fight or flight response. And this has saved us for, let's just say, 500,000 years, okay? So it's very important. Without it, you would die. I do also believe that our ego is directly attached to the lower 3 chakras and our reptilian brain. It is our automatic response to save ourselves if we see a saber-toothed tiger or a burning building or a screeching car sliding towards us. You know, we absolutely 100% need our ego and our reptilian brain and reptilian mind and our immediate, unstoppable reactions. They have saved us countless times. Now, I do also believe that all addictions are solar plexus chakra related, self-control basically. Some addictions are to sexuality, yes, and some are to pain and things that produce blood, for example, from more of a connection to the root chakra. So all addictions are the lower 3 chakras, and therefore I can say to you, my friend, all addictions are reptilian in nature. Even the addiction to seeking fear and danger, such as with extreme sports. That addiction is reptilian, my friend. If you wish to transcend your shadow ego, transcend all such behavior. Page 81. For some of you, the idea of a reptilian heritage carries quite a charge of fear. This fear has actually been put upon you, so you would not discover where you have sprung from. Now, just going back into our lifetime, so let's say the last 100 years, I think most of my viewers are under age 100, but for those of you who are not, yes, awesome, oh, you guys, woo! But let's go back to the year 1967 and the show Star Trek. This might have been the very first presentation of a reptilian battle with humans. And I think there have been many, many, many since then. Maybe far too many. But another one that was very influential happened in 1984. The TV series called V. And that imprinted a lot of people with a deep fear of reptilians. And again, timeline, okay? 1984, the first Pleiadian book, 1992. This book we're reading today, 1994. And now, since we're talking about reptilians and fear, let's bring in one more audio clip.
When the reptiles came to our planet, at some point they began to make these human slaves to produce the mundane tasks, and they mated with us. And so what happened is then they became these what's called abominations, and all this stuff was taken out of the Bible, and it was all rearranged and totally changed. And so then the patriarchs who ruled us through the biblical times, they in actuality were part of the reptilian bloodline. And why did these people do horrible things? Why do they rape, kill, and have cannibalism, and do the most horrible of horrible things to their own kids? And they keep creating this, and then these people are out there teaching us the new age, and they're our role models. Why are they doing this? Because they know that there's so much power in us that we will create a world where these people will no longer be in control, and they have been in control for hundreds of thousands of years.
All right, did you hear my trigger word? Haha, bloodlines. So, therefore, we must bring in our friend David Icke. Now, in a timeline sense, we've got Sitchin, 1976. Oops, back it up. 1967, The Gorn. Maybe Zechariah was sitting at home watching Star Trek and he saw that episode and went, hey, I need to go decode the Sumerian tablets. Could be true. Then we've got Zechariah, 1976, 67, 76. Then there may have been a bunch of other reptilian things, I don't know. 1984, V. Then we've got another happening which was pretty important. Let's take a listen to Barbara telling the tale.
And I was channeling this reptilian information around 1990, and I put the brakes on the Pleiades and said, whoa, this is like a little too far out. People were flipping out when they found out there's reptiles everywhere, intelligent reptiles running us. Princess Diana, mass mind control, mass trauma. Definitely a sacrificial rite planned right around two very, very powerful eclipses. And she hit the 13th pillar going under the Puente Alma bridge, and that is, I heard David Icke talk about it on one of his tapes, identifying it as a pagan sacred site.
Okay, so Barbara brought up my trigger response with the name David Icke, whose first book, The Biggest Secret came out in 1998. Now, in that clip, Barbara said she was channeling reptilian information in the 90s. Now, Lady Diana was ritualistically forced to leave her body on August 31st. So there's our timeline, all right? David Icke, 98. And in between there, let's put 1992, 1994, our Pleiadian books. I believe this one, let me just check here. Path of Empowerment was the third book, I believe. 2004, maybe not. So, okay. Anyway, enough of the timeline shenanigans. Let's get back to this. Oh, but first I should mention that David Icke is called Empowering Offering. And he has the amazing distinction of having the same Mayan birthday as Raymond Moody, Angela Davis, Nicki Minaj, and Bill Clinton. So once again, if you can connect the dots between them and how that all equals empowering offering, then you should be sitting in this chair right now and taking it from here, all right? Whew. Okay, back to the book. And I'll just repeat, for some of you, the idea of a reptilian heritage carries quite a charge of fear. This fear has actually been put upon you so you would not discover where you have sprung from. For ages, your reptilian ancestral line has had a need to keep itself from your conscious mind. Today, reptilian memories surface from your subconscious self as dreams, vague ideas, symbols, and past life scenarios, all essential links to patterns of human behavior. As a member of the reptilian family, serpent images trigger cellular memories of the gods who made you, showing you that you sprang from the serpent and that the serpent brings you life. Clues and indications of reptilian ancestry abound. Carved and formed in stone, they can be seen as symbols at numerous sacred sites and at places along the great ley lines of Earth. Serpent, dragon, and reptilian myths and legends lie at the core of the intimate understandings and principal teachings of almost every indigenous culture. The serpent, reptile, and dragon portray powerful influences as totems. Now, I would also like to say that the Druidic and the Celtic and all pagan traditions are indigenous cultures. It could be that the only non-indigenous culture is the reptilian culture that we could call the Judeo-Roman, Romulan, reptilian, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Islam, Abrahamic culture. Did some more gardening. I've got these big shrubs that I must attend to with snippers. Sometimes the ancient reptiles that your myths call dragons hoarded crystals. Crystals are senders and receivers of information. Many of the highest civilizations were anchored by reptilian energies who had access to the human blueprint and carried this human blueprint from another system into this one. The reptiles did this by bringing a tremendous amount of crystalline energy and hoarding, collecting and storing it inside layers or caves as underground bases of operations. And now I think I've triggered you into Tales of Atlantis. I think it is very intriguing that when we think about the precession of the equinoxes being approximately 26,000 years, but not quite. And the Maya knew the precise amount of time. When we think of almost exactly 13,000 years ago, this is the myths and stories and truth of Atlantis falling into destruction, and many of the stories around that involve the, first of all, misuse of power and control. So we're talking about the lower three chakras, the reptilian energies, and we can combine that with stories of crystals. This was exactly half of our spin ago around this wonderful Milky Way. And these issues have not gone away. They are all still here. There is only one here and now, and it's still here, and it's still now. However, choice always remains. Now a little audio sample from Barbara that might add to that information.
And who is naturally evolving and who is programmed to steer the new age, so to speak. And when I talk new age, what I mean is this. The precession of the equinoxes is a concept where we move as a solar system around this huge elliptic, an orbit. And it takes 26,000 years. They divide this into 12 sections. I believe that what's going to happen is they're going to divide it into 13 sections eventually, each of 2,000 years, because 13 is the missing component in our culture that the Illuminati use to control us. All right, that's why we have Unlucky Friday, the 13th, and yet it's another one of those things that if we would begin to incorporate it, we would see that's what's missing. And so because it's missing, they use it against us. So I believe that that we will have 13 signs eventually. And that's what these ages are. So nobody owns this age. However, my conclusion is that the Illuminati, or the people who want to manipulate us, who have been manipulating us, and who work with an ancient race of reptiles. Ancient. These are our ancestors. Whether we like it or not, these are our ancestors. They are attempting to manipulate this so-called transition from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. Now, what I see happening is this. All the UFO stuff that's going on, they're real. There's no doubt about it. And it has many, many layers. And you're going to attract to yourself the energy of the UFOs or others or spirits or whatever based on what you need to learn and based on your fear or lack of fear. Because it is fear. Fear is the way that we're controlled. Well, let's explain something to you. There are purposes to ages. Our vehicle told you about the 26,000 year cycle. And you can divide that by 13. And that 13th sign is the sign of the serpent. And it is that which is missing from your zodiac. serpent or the dragon, however you wish to refer it to, because the serpent dragon beings are your ancestors, and in many ways they have hid themselves from you so that you would not know who your true rulers are. Now, your planet has been governed, that is probably the best word at this time, by entities that are of reptilian lineage, and they are powerful, powerful force of existence. They have their dark side, they have their light side. There are those in the reptilian family who adore you, who cherish you, who look to you as humans, as the ultimate creation that then can do unbelievable, unthought of, unfathomable things. As the other branch of the reptilian family that knows that you are capable of all of these unbelievable, outrageous, unfathomable things that are unpredictable, and so they must control you. Because if you were truly to find your kundalini, so to speak, and to produce of your own volition, you would outproduce your governors, your rulers.
Outproduce our governors and rulers through disengaging the fear response and also the transcending of the 12 imprint they stuck into our consciousness. 12 represents a cube. It represents a box. 13 represents a sphere and represents thinking outside the box. I'm not saying that the 12 house zodiac astrology is wrong. I am saying it is incomplete. I think all of the birthdays need to shift to allow for the re-inclusion of Ophiuchus, the serpent bear. Now, things like Saturn's return and Chiron will all stay the same. It's just that you will probably have a different birth sign, or possibly have. And that right there strikes at the core of reptilian consciousness. The reptile mind hates change, and it also hates being proven wrong. And they knew that. The 12 overlay was always meant to be temporary. It was meant to displace the 13 connection to the moon and to divine femininity and stamp the authority of masculinity and 12. So, get over it. This is going to help you, okay? Seriously. This is really going to help you until you find for sure the 13 house astrology that you can completely trust. Then why not trust your DNA that came from the Maya, that came from the Pleiades in the interim, and even after you feel 100% sure that your actual day of birth is your actual zodiac astrology. You can combine them, of course. Now back to the book for a little bit more. The mystery of the blood has been subverted in your modern religions. Do you ever wonder about Christian communion? You are told to eat the body and drink the blood of Christ. What is the significance of that? If you were raised Christian or Catholic, these were words you heard over again. This is my body. This is my blood. This ritual is a distortion. Taking the body and blood invites a sense of cannibalism and is based on an ancient and unhealed reptilian infusion. Now I need to add a little something from a little book called A Course in Miracles. Yeshua states, I do not want to share my body in communion because this is to share nothing. Would I try to share an illusion with the most holy children of a most holy Father? Yet I do want to share my mind with you because we are of one mind, and that mind is ours. See only this mind everywhere, because only this is everywhere and in everything. So if you're not familiar with Asim, I can help you with that. Or help yourself. Now, the last thing I'm going to play is an audio sample from Barbara, or should I say the Pleiadians? Perhaps both. I forget now. It's been so many. So let's take a listen and then we'll wrap things up with a bow.
It must be that you are not that easily controlled for them to make such a major effort to do it. And so how about realizing that? And how about realizing how pathetic the whole drama is? There's no need for you to be in fear of anything. What there is a need for you to be in is the vibration of love. A vibration of loving the world that you ended up on. A vibration that says, I am here to make a difference, and I will produce love in my biological being. These beings that are so manipulative of you, and as reptiles behind the scenes, they need love. They have fear. They use fear. That is how they control you. That is what they know. Love is so distant to them, they can't imagine it. We ask you all, please, to acknowledge that the spiritual forces are essential for you to integrate for your well-being, and to trust yourself, and to see if you can find in your heart, in your reptilian brain, in the tail that you no longer have, in that hybrid part of yourself, something that is not evil, something that has perhaps lost its mother's love. And perhaps you can develop the compassion in your heart to be one who will help to heal all of those who have forgotten what it is to be safe and to be loved. It is a simple message, but to do it is quite profound.
Quite profound is quite an understatement, in fact. And so it is that I invite you to join me in an activation of sorts, a prayer of sorts, and a clearing which will free you up from negative attachments that might be holding you down in your lower 3 chakras. This is utilizing the divinity trinity that I have talked about many times, which comes directly from the heart chakra. So I will say the words. Feel free to repeat them, or just let them sink in, if you will. I completely and totally, unconditionally forgive all reptilians for anything and everything they have ever done or will ever do to harm humanity. I completely and totally, unconditionally love all reptilians. I have complete and total, unconditional trust that every single thing any reptilians have done to humanity or will ever do to humanity is part of the divine plan of unity consciousness.
Let us begin at the beginning. As we have discussed from time to time, the Anu are a race of extraterrestrial beings that came to your world hundreds of thousands of years ago. The Anu, or as many of you refer to them in ancient text as the Anunnaki, were responsible for infusing their genetic material into the naturally evolved hominid species on your planet that you often refer to as Homo erectus and various similar types of early human form. And with the infusion of their DNA into Homo erectus, thus created what you now consider yourselves to be as Homo sapien, human. So Earth is forming the last foundational component for the 7th hybrid race, which on the list is referred to as Het, or Anu Het, which means They are the conclusion of the cycle, the grand cycle that was begun by the Anunnaki and ends with the Anu Het, and brings forth a new species, as we said, of power, passion, and peace. Now, this all goes toward the understanding of the real transformation that's taking place on your planet. This entire cycle is really what the transformation is all about. This upgrade, this uplift, this ascension into new forms, new expressions of great power and passion and peace and benefit and creativity and unconditional love that can ignite a new wave of experience and a new series of civilizations within your star system, other star systems, and the galaxy and other galaxies. This is the beginning of a new cycle with the Anu Het, a new form of the Anunnaki for a different purpose of expanding creation in a new and unique way, in a much broader way, in a much more expanded way. And this then brings us to be capable this day of explaining to you that in terms of our gifts of sharing information with you, the real gift is that in giving you this information, you get to skip all the intervening phases. You get to go straight from the idea of being human into being Enani Ka, the uplifted version of yourselves, skipping over literally thousands of years of necessary evolution to highly accelerate your ability to become the sixth hybrid race. That is our gift to you. This is our explanation at this time of where you fit into this overall map, this overall picture, and that you are now accelerating for those who wish to align with it, well on your way to becoming Enani Ka, and accelerating toward the idea of open contact as you are acclimatizing to the idea of sharing the world with other beings from the stars so that you yourselves can also create the world you prefer, the version of Earth you prefer, and also expand yourself to the stars and become a spacefaring race as well.
We truly are one God-sciousness. Een Lak'esh Alakin. Namaste.